Hotep Bubakhanyiselwa, we greet you in the name of the sun and in the name of fire. We thank you for joining us on this video lesson on the ancestral cloths. On this video, we're going to be looking at this cloth right here, Ibalo. This cloth, Bakhanyiselwa, is a very common ancestral cloth, and it is a very sacred cloth. It is a very special cloth as it holds one of the deepest mysteries of initiation. Now, traditionally, this cloth is usually associated with Umdawe, and it is thus associated with this other cloth, which is Injeti, this one right here. Sometimes we see Ipalo being used by traditional women dancers of the Rain Queen. But as you know, on these video lessons, we like to go deeper and to reveal what is usually not revealed. The initiates of this cloth are actually quite important because these are the people who played a huge role in creating all of these ancestral cloths. I'm saying this because the initiates of Ipalo, this cloth right here, are actually the weavers. When we look at this cloth, we see the patterns of a weaver, the horizontal line and the vertical line, right? When you combine these two lines, the horizontal and the vertical line, you create. Most of our clothes, I'm talking ordinary clothes that we wear every day, are made up of these two lines, right? These are the very same lines of a weaver, the very same lines of a fabric. Weaving has always been part of many traditional initiations. Traditional healers usually buy these ancestral cloths, right? But they also make their own cloths. They design their own traditional skirts and aprons in accordance to how they are shown. In some initiation schools, each initiate has to design their own apron and ancestral blanket. These are some of the things that would make initiates differ from each other because obviously they are designing things in accordance to what they are being shown. As a weaver, you also deal with symbols. So therefore, weavers were also well versed when it comes to symbols and ancient writings. They had to learn how to read and write. This is why this cloth is called Ipalo, as in umbhalo. On the other hand, it is also connected to numbers, as in izibalo, isbalo. Then there's also umbala, which has to do with colors, patterns, and designs. This is because our ancient writing system consists of numbers, letters, and colors. Hence, ukubala, ukubhala, nombala are connected, even in terms of wording and pronunciation. The ancestral cloths themselves are designed through izibalo, imibhalo, nembala. They are designed through numbers, symbols, and colors. That's why I said the people who designed the ancestral cloths were the initiates of this lineage, the initiates of this balo cloth, right? Ibalo, izibalo, imibhalo, imbala, all connected. The initiates of this cloth are the weavers, right? These are the old weavers of the tribes. They weave things into reality. They are the weavers of amacansi, traditional grass mats. They are the weavers of traditional grass hats, grass baskets, grass containers and bowls, etc. We can find many of their creative works to this day We can still find them in the rural areas where they have their own traditional machineries and equipments made entirely of natural and unmanufactured materials. We also do have modern day weavers who manufacture cloths and fabrics using modern day machines, right? The clothes that we are wearing right now are made up of modern day, are made by modern day weavers. We also have fashion designers as a modern day archetype of the dumbed down version of the initiates of this cloth. Fashion designers are are the descendants of this cloth, but obviously theirs is based on materialism more than spirituality. Yet, even this is by the way of putting things into context, because when you go deeper into fashion designing, modern clothing and labels, you find that many of those common brands that everybody knows and everybody likes are actually based on something quite spiritual. Many of the symbols and names that are used by clothing brands are actually based on occult symbols. And these symbols can be connected to a variety of pagan gods. Just like these cloths, they are actually branded and are labeled by a particular energy. So, this thing of using spiritual symbols in what you wear is not just a modern thing, it's an ancient thing. On the other hand, clothing is quite an interesting thing for the fact that you can tell what a person is feeling from the clothes that they wear. You can tell what a person is like from just looking at what they wear. You know, the colors, the type of clothes they wear, the branding, the style, how they wear those clothes, the condition of those clothes, etc. Those things say something about a person. They are like little whispers that echo within a person's shadow. The clothes that you choose to wear in any given day usually say something about you. And whatever it is that you wear is an extension and an expression of your personality. And obviously, as we all know, whenever we speak about the personality and self expression, we are now speaking about idlos. All the ancestral cloths that we know about different expressions of personality or idlos. To some extent, our ancestral cloths work exactly like modern day clothing brands and labels. As a result, some people do treat these cloths like brands and labels. To them, it's about what kind of cloth you are wearing, what type of ijazi, the type of beads, etc. You find that a person who wears a certain type of cloth will feel exactly like a person who wears an expensive brand of clothing. They feel exclusive and powerful, right? Even to this day, we still have initiates who are weavers. We have people who design amajazi, which are church garments. These are people who help you to create whatever spiritual garment you dreamt of or whatever spiritual garment that you need to make. You just go to them and they design it for you, they make it for you. In fact, the design is already there, they just have to make it for you. There are also rules associated with this. Like, for example, if it's a woman weaver, one of the rules says that this woman must be on menopause. Besides asking someone to do these things for you, though, in earlier times, initiates had to create many of these things for themselves. Initiates had to create their own beaded necklaces and bracelets. They designed their own traditional hats, mats, skirts, headbands, and waistbands. This applies to both spirit initiates and to those who are initiated by a gobel. In many traditional initiation schools, initiates were responsible for designing their own things. In this way, they were taught weaving, beadwork, knitting, and crochet. As a result of this, they were also taught about symbols, patterns, colors, and numbers. These are the elements they used to represent the energy that they embody. It's the same with the spirit initiates, right? When they dream of something, they have to buy it. And if it's not available, then they have to make it for themselves. This now forces them to learn other skills like beadwork, knitting, and weaving, etc. And by the way, it's very much advisable to make your own things than to buy them. And whatever it is that you cannot make with your own hands, you can buy. Sometimes you can buy a finished product and then add your own designs, or rearrange the whole design, buy a finished product and then rearrange it. That is the way of the spirit initiate. You just do everything in accordance with the instructions of the spirit. But it is highly advisable that you make these things with your own hands when you can. Because when you do make these things with your own hands, you add your own energy to whatever it is that you create. The initiates of this cloth, as I said, are the weavers, the bead makers, the designers. When we look at this cloth, we see vertical lines and horizontal lines, all interwoven together, just like how a weaver combines vertical lines and horizontal threads to create one complete fabric. Every piece of fabric that we know is basically made up of horizontal lines and vertical lines, just like we see on this cloth. The vertical and the horizontal line represent the vertical string and the horizontal string of a weaver. These are the weaver's threads. Whenever you combine a vertical line and a horizontal line, you create. This is true on so many levels. Another version of this cloth is this one right here, right? Again, we see the same crisscrossing of vertical and horizontal lines happening. And there's another version of this cloth that we no longer consider, and it comes in a form of a blanket, and it is this one right here. In Zulu, we call it ichali. Ichali was also used to represent the ancestral grandmother weavers. The initiates of this cloth may also dream of ichali rather than dreaming of ipalo. Right? It's the same thing. And this picture, it's a perfect picture because this woman is wearing the blanket of a weaver, ichali, and at the same time she's weaving. So, like, this is alignment. The gifts that are associated with this cloth are the gift of distant healing and distant divination. These are the people who can heal from a distance using a person's clothes or other belongings. They can read a person from a distance using their belongings. They can find lost people by tracing them out through their clothes. These initiates can also smell you out from a distance whenever you want their help. By the time you get to them, they already know why you are there. You can even find them already preparing your herbs for your healing. You find that everything is already waiting for you. To them, distance doesn't really mean anything. This is true on so many levels, but we'll talk about this a bit later, Nyana. These initiates can read the energy around objects. They can trace out the history, the owner, and the maker of any given object. On the other hand, they themselves can make sacred objects. They can turn everyday materials into divine objects. They can heal people by creating sacred objects for them, like charms and amulets. These are the people who can heal others by using beads or by simply weaving a wool. They can weave a bracelet, a waistband, ipidan, a headband, or an ankle bracelet using a wool, a string of a wool. They also use different colors of beads and wools for different purposes. Sometimes one color is used, sometimes a combination of colors are used. They can also create beads for people so that they can wear them for protection, luck, healing, activation, etc. Theirs is about creating sacred objects or power objects that will work for people. Most definitely, if you think about this, it should make sense. I mean, who else can heal people using a string of wool besides a weaver? Another gift that is associated with this cloth is acupuncture. Acupuncture uses needles to pierce certain energy points in your body in order to bring healing. And Africans have their own methods, right? They used thorns and porcupine spikes to achieve the same objective. Traditionally, this cloth is associated with Umdawe. This is true because Amandawe as a tribe were quite famous for their weaving skills, bead making skills, and they were famous for having the best fabrics. In fact, these are some of the things that they used to trade with and trade for: beads, fabrics, and grass woven objects. That is why this cloth is connected with Amandau and any other tribe, in fact, that was famous for their weaving and wearing fabric to some extent, such as the Venda and the Tsonga. And both these tribes are closely connected with Isindau. Remember, we associated Injeti with Umdawe as a warrior. Now, in the case of Ipalo, Umdawe is connected to weaving. Since as a tribe, Amandawe had their own warriors, they had their own chiefs and healers, and they had their own weavers. Hence, Amandawe warriors themselves used to wear injeti, a warrior's cloth. The Amandawe initiates of this cloth, Ipalo, also have their own language. It is a secret language that has to be known and spoken by all the Amandawe initiates. There is also another language that is called spirit talk, an ancient language of the spirit that can only be spoken in trance. Remember, we said that these people also deal with language. They are taught how to speak and how to write the language of the spirit. When they create charms for people, they also use sacred signs for protection, for healing, for luck, etc. That's how they heal people, right? The Amandawe initiates of this cloth are the ones that are associated with exorcism and mediumship, Ugufemba. The Amandawe as a tribe are famous for Ugufemba even to this day. Sometimes you find that when a spirit is being exorcised, the exorcist will use a magical container in order to trap the entity inside so that it doesn't return to the body or it doesn't inhabit any other body. The exorcist weaver will then make a grass god or she will get a pumpkin god, protect it with magical symbols and spells, and then use it to trap the evil spirit. Right? That's why Amandawe initiates are also famous for Amagona and what I call the gods in gods or the genie in a bottle. These initiates can tame spiritual entities and use them at their bidding. They make contracts with spiritual entities so that they can use them in their work. They entice these entities, then they trap them inside a container like a gourd or a grass basket. Then they use these entities for healing or witchcraft. But usually it's both. Amandawe are not only famous for healing, weaving, and exorcism, but they are also famous for their witchcraft. Amandawe initiates keep their tools for ukufemba in a grass woven basket. This symbolizes the fact that ukufemba is associated with the weavers. It proves that ukufemba is for the weavers. This basket just makes everything obvious. The initiates of this cloth are those who are usually associated with flight. They can fly, and when they fly, they use magic carpets. Our traditional grass mats were once used as magic carpets. Even our traditional grass baskets can be used for similar reasons, but such an art is mostly used by witches nowadays. And this is what I also meant when I said distance doesn't really matter for these initiates, and it's true on so many levels. Although the art of using a magic carpet for flight is a very ancient art that can be traced all the way back to the second cycle of the ancient ones. If you haven't watched my video where I talk about this, the second cycle of the ancient ones is the time of the first civilizations of this earth, when women used to rule the world. So this cloth is definitely connected to female energy, and this is why some people say umdawe is male and others say umdawe is female, because ipalo is the cloth of the Amandawe female weavers and injeti is the cloth of the Amandawe male warriors. That's why others say Amandawe or Umdawe is male and others say Umdawe is female. Others say Umdawe is the paternal and others say it's the maternal. They are both saying the same thing. As I was saying, these people are connected with the gift of flying using magic carpets. There are many such mystery stories among the Arabs and the Indians about, flying carpets. Like the story of Aladdin, for example. Even among the Bantu, we have real life modern stories and ancient stories that tell us about people that can fly using grass mats and grass baskets. Sometimes it's not really a carpet or a mat, but it is a cloth that has been made into a cape. This is exactly like Doctor Strange's cape. That is but the product of a master weaver. An initiated master weaver can create a magical cloth and use it to fly, like a flying superhero who wears a cape as if to show that it's the cloth that makes him fly, it's the cape. I'm thinking about superheroes like Superman and Doctor Strange. And if you think about it, we do associate the cape with flight. In the case of Doctor Strange, this is very obvious. He cannot fly by himself. It's the cape that makes him fly. In fact, his cape is sentient. It's alive. This is but one of the secret magic of an initiated master weaver, the ability to create a cloth that is alive. Just like Aladdin. In fact, Aladdin is a perfect archetype of this cloth because it doesn't only have a flying carpet, but he also has a genie trapped in a bottle, like a sangoma who uses amagona and cloths to fly at night, and he uses the same amagona and cloths to heal people during the day. And like I said, these initiates are well famous for their healing and their witchcraft. Even the things that we spoke about, like the gift of flight, they are really no longer used by healers, right? But they are used by witches. This comes now as an effect of working with this cloth and as a symptom of being gifted with this cloth. Definitely, all the gifts have their negative side. The symptoms of this cloth is that these people are materialistic. And I know that, others who have watched the Big Five and the Peacock video will say that I've already mentioned this. And it will seem like I'm repeating the same thing. So let me just clarify what I mean. When we spoke about the big five, we said they are materialistic because they are shapeshifters. Shapeshifting has that effect. It makes us descend lower. The more you shapeshift, the more you get inclined towards materialistic things. Remember, during the beginning of the cosmic cycle, we were all shapeshifters, and then we manifested as a result of being in that state of shapeshifting. So, shapeshifting makes us materialistic. On the peacock cloth, we say that these initiates are also materialistic because they are easily enticed by the beauty of this world, the wealth, and the fame of this world. Even when they enter into initiation, they always expect to be rewarded with fame, wealth, and power. So they are materialistic because they cannot think beyond materialistic gain. Then there are these initiates, right? The weaver, the Palo initiates. Weavers are materialistic because they have a tendency to put so much trust in the power of charms, amulets, beads, wools, cloths, etc. Their spirituality or power is always focused on the power of objects or power objects. As a result, they end up forgetting that the power source of those objects is actually an abstract source. They usually don't believe it until they see it. Even when you heal them, they are betterly healed when you give them charms, amulets, beads, wools, and the likes. I hope you guys see the difference between these initiates. So, materialism is one of their symptoms, and this is the type of materialism that makes them end up worshipping idols. These are the people that like to worship physical things and believing in the divine power of idols, statues, charms, beads, cloths, etc. As a result, they always tend to focus their spirituality towards the material, towards power objects. Such people also tend to be very religious, traditional, ritualistic. As a result, they turn out to be quite aggressive, suicidal, and morbid. They like to be exclusive, and thus they are very secretive and vindictive. And there we also have secrecy again. I spoke about how dreamers are secretive, the Genofile cloth initiate. I also mentioned that the shapeshifter, the big five initiate, is also secretive. And now I'm saying the weaver, the Paolo initiate, is also secretive. This is the same thing that I've explained just now about their materialistic tendency. The secrecy is also quite different with each initiate. The dreamer is not naturally secretive. That's the one thing that makes him different from the shapeshifter and the weaver. Dreamers only become secretive because of the nature of their dreams, not because of dreaming itself. In most cases, dreamers have to be told to be quiet, and they are taught to be secretive. Through experience or by being told by people who have experience, dreamers learn how to be secretive. And maybe I shouldn't even be using the word secretive. It's just that there's something weird that often happens to dreamers. But I don't want to be too long. What I can say is that dreamers learn to be secretive after having bad experiences from sharing their dreams all willy nilly. Then dreamers withdraw from sharing their dreams. Sometimes this withdrawal may lead them to being secretive, right? Then for the shapeshifter, secrecy comes naturally. Shapeshifters like to hide themselves. As a result, they are very secretive. So they are secretive because they are hiding, right? Then there's the Palo initiate, the weaver. Their secrecy comes from being exclusive and being set apart from the rest. Simply knowing things that others don't, having things that others don't, gives them a sense of power. Just like those people that love fashion and expensive clothes, they love the idea of limited editions. A person doesn't mind spending a lot of money on a sneaker because it's a limited edition, simply because there's only like 10 of those sneakers around the world. When such a person comes to you and tells you that he just bought a limited edition product and he's the only one who has it, if you ask that person where he bought that product, you'd also like to buy it. Chances are that person will never tell you where he got it. Agere, he wants to be exclusive, so he cannot afford to share his information. Hence, another symptom of this cloth is that these people they are quite jealous people, and when you have jealousy and secrecy, you get a person who jealously guards their secrets. Like so many initiates and so many secret societies. Members of a secret society will usually guard their secrets jealously. They don't want anybody else to find out about their secrets. And they are jealous of anyone who uncovers their secrets without being one of them. Such that some secret groups may even try to kill you for finding out their secrets. Weavers are also very much drawn towards the idea of a secret society. In fact, they do have a secret society which they call Utogoza. Another one of their symptoms is entrapment and enslavement. These people like to entrap and they like to enslave. I don't know how to put it. It's like their energy creates cages. It entraps. They don't bring freedom, instead, they take prisoners with them. And really, they can't help it, so we can't blame them because their energy makeup affects people that way. They can make great leaders, yes, of course, because as weavers, they are good with bringing groups of people together. But they also make the worst leaders because their touch makes people dependent on them. Their touch creates slaves, and they themselves can be very clingy. By character, these are the worst initiates you can find, and yet at the same time, these are one of the best initiates you can find. They are the best of healers, and they are the worst of witches. They are the type of initiates that can be very committed to church and be very committed to witchcraft. They are very extreme in that they are quite literally on the extreme ends of the opposite poles. This is why people say churchgoers have evil hearts or churchgoers are witches. There is some truth in that. And the best example of such characters are the members of Kerekeya Spiri, the secret church. These people are very religious, they are very traditional, and they are very ritualistic. As a result, they are very secretive, vindictive, cultish, and they lean towards the dark. They also make use of beads, wools, cloths. They are a lineage of weavers. Really, Kereke ya Sipiri actually falls under the lineage of Isindao. This cloth Bakanyiselwa has a lot of mysteries. I already mentioned that this cloth is connected to Insebenzo Yentambo, healing people using a wool, a thread of wool. A code that is common among South African faith healers and even Hindus. Hindus do have this code, by the way. I also mentioned that these people deal with language. They weave sacred signs and messages on grass mats, amacansi, and fabrics, and through bead making. That's why they have to study the secret language, the sacred language, and know about the sacred signs. On the other hand, they have their own secret language. As a result, they are weavers of spells, or power words and power sentences. Basically, they are the Heka priests and the Heka priestesses, the magicians, right? They use magic words, magic spells to perform the most inconceivable things. Words like abracadabra, you know. In Kemu, ancient Egypt, they were called the Sau, which is really the same as the word Ndau. Another name that they used was Ur Hekau, which basically just means the great Mtandazi, the great prayer warrior. Hence, these are their abatandazi, initiates who use power words, prayer, spiritual tongues, magic words, spell casting, in order to heal, protect, charm, divine, etc. On the other hand, since this cloth is for the weavers, it's also connected to those who work under Amalati. Some of these people don't work with Indomba, but they work with Ilati. Ilati is a heavenly cloth, if we may put it that way. That's why some people and some churches put it on the ceiling. Now, with all these things, it shouldn't be surprising when people talk about what they call Istunya Somdawe. This is an ancestral spirit, Umdawe, that is connected with the mysteries of the church, Istunya. Istunya Somdawe actually falls under this cloth. Remember, I also said that this cloth is also connected with exorcism, ukufemba, right? And this is why we also have Insebenzo Yelati that deals with exorcism, ukufemba. By this I mean Elati can be used for exorcism. It can be used to contain a spirit, like in the case of a god. I hope you see how these things connect, right? Ilati, Ipalo, and Istunya Somdao. Plus, remember earlier on we spoke about the cape, right? And traditionally, the cape is what we call ispiga. We do have our own traditional capes, and usually initiates have to design their own capes, just like Ilati. So under Istunya, we have Intambo, Ibidane, Ilati, Ispiga, Inombolo, Umtandazo, Ijazi. On the side of Idlozi, we have Ukufemba, Ubuhlalo, Ipalo, Igona, Uparula, Icansi, Ubomvu. When all these elements are combined, they become Isithunywa Somdawe, belonging to this cloth, Ipalo. With all of this, Bakhanyiselwa, I hope you are able to tell the difference between Umdawe as Ipalo, the weaver, and Umdawe as Injeti, the warrior. And as much as these cloths are different, they are also connected. Really, we cannot speak about Ipalo without speaking about Injeti. Their most obvious connection is that they both belong to Amandawe tribe. Ipalo and Injeti are the Sau priest and the Ur Hekau priest, also represented by Istunywa and Umdao. We already spoke about Injeti in relation to the warrior cloth, but on that video, we were focusing on the shield cloth. Therefore, we just said a little about Injeti. We didn't go deeper, and Injeti goes deep. So maybe this is the time for us to actually go deeper into it. Injeti and Ipalo go hand in hand. They complement each other and they complete each other. I mentioned earlier on that Ipalo is for the Sau priest and the Ur Hekau priest. If we were to be specific, we would say that Ipalo is for the Ur Hekau priest, the weaver, and Injeti is for the Sau priest, the warrior. I like these words Hekau and Sau because both of them point towards the fact that these two priesthoods are connected under Umdao. Even the words Hekau, Sau, Dao sound the same. They all have that Au sound. The Ur Hekau and the Sau priest fall under Umdao, just as Ipalo and Injeti fall under Umdao. We said Ipalo is the weaver and Injeti is the warrior. When we look at the Egyptian hieroglyphs for the Palo initiate, the Ur Hekau, we find something quite interesting. The Ur Hekau is basically a magician, right? A master of powerful words and gestures. We already covered all of that, right? On the hieroglyphs, we see everything that we already spoke about. A person sitting down, pointing at his mouth, denoting speech, or someone who uses the mouth, as we said, the master of powerful words, right? We also see two arms, and beneath them, we see three lines. And right next to that, there is what looks like a twisted rope. All of this represents what we already mentioned, that these people are weavers. Then we have a mouth, denoting a person who uses speech for magic. We covered this too. And lastly, we have a bird representing flight. Like we said, these people can fly. All the symbols on the glyph, when interpreted pictorially, points out the mysteries of the weaver. I don't know if you see it. Keep in mind that this is not the way these characters are interpreted. This is just my own pictorial interpretation. Otherwise, each character can be understood in terms of Roman alphabets. When interpreted that way, they lead to the word Ur-Hekau. There's also another interesting glyph connected to this, and that glyph is this one. It is a glyph for the word Heka, which means magic. Here we see a person, we see arms, and we see a twisted thread. If we interpret this pictorially, we see a weaver. I mean, a man sitting down with hands and a twisted knot. This is a person sitting down using his hands for weaving, just like on the previous glyph. The arms are also a symbol for the car, which is Idlozi. Then they say this glyph means magic and creative impulse, of course. This is a weaver sitting down, weaving magic spells, magic mats, magic spiritual cloths, magic baskets, magic symbols. Pictorially, this is what the image is saying, and with all of that which we have already covered on this video, it shouldn't be hard to see this. Literally, Bakanyiselwa, the Ipalo initiates as the weavers are the Ur-Hekau, even the glyphs pictorially say so. Now, let us look at the Injeti initiate, who are the warriors, the Sau priest. The glyph for the Sau priest is this one. They say the Sau are the guardians, the magical protectors, the reciters of spells. They are connected with Injeti because they are the protectors, they are the guardians. They are the Abavigeli, the spiritual police, the spiritual guards. Remember, there's a difference between a guard and a guide. A guide is there to guide you, like a tour guide. A guard is like a security guard, a bodyguard. He carries weapons and is there to defend you always. A guide is just there to help you through your journey. Remember, the Injeti initiates are the defenders and the avengers, who were part of the tribal army and the tribal police. When we look at the glyph for the Sau priest, we see a man sitting down, again pointing his mouth. we see a symbol that looks like a spiral, and we have the Sa symbol. A man pointing his mouth denotes a person using his mouth, indeed, a reciter of spells. The spiral looks like the air sign representing umoya, even the magic. Then we have the Sa symbol, which is a symbol of protection. Therefore, pictorially, when we look at this, really, it's a person using words or magic spells to protect. Again, this is my own pictorial interpretation, yet it is not far off from the truth. And yes, we are not really making a mistake because hieroglyphs are pictograms. Since the Sao priests are the protectors and the guards, they are connected with Injeti, the warrior priest. Only a warrior can protect and guard. Hence, Injeti is connected with strength, endurance, stability, and on the other hand, it is connected with death, resurrection, and immortality. It's the strength and the endurance of the Amandawe warriors, and at the same time, it is the resurrection and the immortalization of the Amandawe warriors. That is exactly what the word Injeti means. It means strength, endurance, stability, resurrection, and immortality. In Kemu, ancient Egypt, Injeti was called Jet, Jedi, Jeti. The jade was used as a symbol and an amulet of power, strength, endurance, stability, immortality, and resurrection. In Kemu, ancient Egypt, the jade pillar was connected to the tamarisk tree, a type of tree that is known for its strength to endure hard conditions. Injeti now uses the oak tree. The oak tree is also known for its strength, its endurance, and it lives for a very long time. Hence, it is a symbol of immortality. And there are many such trees that are associated with immortality, like the musu trees of the Botswana, which are the trees of the dead ones, where it was believed that anyone who dies under the tree will resurrect in the afterlife into an immortal. This is exactly like Injeti. It also represents resurrection and immortality. That is why when initiates go to Parola, Umdao, they wear Injeti to represent their death and rebirth. On the video about the shield cloth, we said the warriors are connected with immortality, hence we spoke of Lumukanda. This is also true with Injeti, this cloth. Hence we see the oak tree printed on the cloth, which represents immortality. And when the oak tree dies, the acorns are left behind to sprout out a new tree. This is how now the oak tree dies and resurrects, and in this way, the oak tree remains immortal. In Zulu, the oak tree is called Iphahla. In Sotho, it's called Mphahla. And in Xhosa, it's called Umphahla. This word Mphahla is very interesting because it now brings everything back together. Iphahla, Mphahla, Umphahla is connected to the word ukuphahla and the word impahla. Do you see now how these things come together? Ukuphahla is to communicate with the ancestors. These are magic words of communication. When you phahla, you carefully weave words together as a way of communicating with the spirit. There are certain words and jargons to use when you phahla. Then there's the word impahla, which literally means clothes. Again, the weaving aspect of Umdawe is being reconfirmed. Taking a closer look at Injeti, we also see these diagonal lines. On the palo, we were dealing with vertical lines and horizontal threads. Now on this one, we are dealing with diagonal threads. And when we look at these lines, you can just tell that this is not just one thread. These are two threads that are twisted together. This is exactly how intambo is made. And in a larger sense, ibidane. When we look at the whole cloth all together with its twisted diagonal threads, it looks like a net. A net is usually used by fishermen and boatmen. And it's crazy because the sa was commonly used by boatmen for protection in Egypt in ancient Khem. This now also confirms what I said about these initiates. Remember how I said these initiates have a tendency to entrap and capture people, just like a net. And now I'm also tempted to take advantage of this time and bring something that is commonly spoken about nowadays, and that is inzonza. To explain inzonza in another time would be quite impossible. I honestly cannot think of a perfect time than this one. So please just bear with me. I'm gonna, include it. First of all, we have Amanzonza, who were a clan of warriors. Amanzonza, as a warrior clan, were said to be famous for preparing men for war. They had one of the best training for creating powerful warriors. One can only imagine how intense their training was if they even earned the respect of the tribes. Then there is Inzunza or Inzunzu as an ancestral spirit. This is the type of ancestral spirit that died by drowning. Those people come back to become water spirits that are called Inzonza or Inzonzo. So I was tempted to bring this up because we were talking about the boatmen and the fishermen. And in most cases, these are the people that died by drowning. Some people among Amandawe were boatmen and fishermen who died by drowning as they were fishing or as they were traveling by water. These people become Inzonza. Amanzonza can therefore be included under the warrior's cloth since they were famous for war. And they can be included under the Amandawe cloth since they became water spirits as a result of drowning. Amanzonza, Abangoni, Amandawe were all warrior priests. Injeti, the jade, as the warrior priest cloth, is also connected to those who are called Amajaji, which means the judges. A judge is basically umpindiseli, a righteous one who gives a fair and final verdict. He is a master of right and wrong. In Kemu, the judges were called the Jajat. The Jajat, the judges, Amajaji, are connected to Injedi because they are the Abaphindiseli and the Abavikeli, the avengers and the defenders. In the old tribes, these are the people that would bring judgment and execute punishment to anyone who breaks the law. So they are the Jajat, the judges. The word Njeti, as I said, is connected to the word Jed or Jedi or Jeti. From these words, we get the word Jedi. Remember, a Jedi is a master warrior, a sensei, according to Star Trek. Or is it Star Wars? In Kemu, Jed also meant the power of speech, and it was once a person's name. Jeti, Jeti is also a person's name. Looking back at the injet cloth, we see another plant which is a flower that looks like a clematis type of flower. We see three leaves and the three states of creation. Right next to the leaves is a bud. This bud slowly opens and blossoms into a half opened flower. Then ultimately, the flower fully blossoms. These are now the three stages of creation. Remember, the number three is the number of creation. The three states of creation also represent the three stages of initiation. Imvumakufa, uphehlo, nentwaso, which is the entrance phase, the preparation phase, and the initiation phase. Or ubizo, intwaso, nentsebenzo, which is the calling, the initiation, and the fulfillment of one's calling or one's destiny. We can also say ingulo, ukulashwa, nokwelapha, which is the sacred sickness, healing from the sacred sickness, and then being a healer. These are the three stages outlined by this symbol. The flower itself is another sacred symbol because when we look at it, we see two flowers. One is the bigger one, which is colored in maroon. Then there's a smaller one inside of it, and it is white colored. This represents unity, peace, and the end of war. It's the same symbol that was used in Kemu in a form of a white crown and the red crown, which is known as the double crown. It's the same code behind the symbol of wearing red and white beads. It represents the end of war. The end of war among Amadlozi, your ancestors. This is the unity between those of the white crown, white beads, white cloth, and those of the red crown, red beads, and red cloth. The unity between Upper and Lower Egypt is the same unity between what we can call Upper and Lower Southern Africa. We're speaking Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa. And I'm saying this. As I'm saying this, I just received a flash of knowledge. I see Umkhanyiselwa that is coming. I don't know if he is already here, but this Mkhanyiselwa will try to unite the two lands, South Africa and a land beyond South Africa. But this land is right next to the borders of South Africa. He will own an important piece of land that is in both lands. He will be a royal person who has united the two lands within himself. And his spiritual state will be signified physically because he will literally be a king of the two lands by owning a piece of land which is divided by two countries. If such a person comes, he will be a fulfillment of a very, very ancient prophecy. Sila. This cloth, Bakhanyiselwa, is a very special cloth. It is a very sacred cloth. It has its own mysteries. It has its own gifts. It has its own burdens. It has its own initiation. And it has its own ascension. And my ancestors. I've said a lot, but I didn't really touch upon ascension. And maybe I did. In fact, I did. I did. If you think about it, it's just that I spoke about it in a roundabout way. Even now, we just spoke about the unity between the two lands. These are some of the teachings that also involve the ascension of this cloth. And we will cover all of that on part 2 of this video lesson. There are so many mysteries here, Kanye said, especially with Injeti and Ipalo combined. Even with this wedding, Jet Pillar and Njeti Palo. It's like, but yeah, we're gonna cover that. But Kanye said, do make sure that you check out my other videos when you have time, because some of the videos are connected. As you might have noticed, I sometimes make references to my other videos. Some information may not be fully understood unless you have the background information, and unless you understand where I'm coming from. So do check out the other videos. We have come to the end of our video lesson for today. Do make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We really do thank you for joining us today. Ndawe.